Artist Jamie Rice exhibits her own brand of striking imagery and unique stylings with pro-liberty themes. To purchase prints or to order original paintings or custom artwork, visit jamiericeart.com. Hey, Larken Rose here, and this video is a follow-up to a video I did before. I'll include the link at the end of this, about a certain example of violence and injustice that was inflicted on a friend of mine up in Canada. And this video isn't just about that particular example, it's about the pattern of a violent gang of thugs committing assault and battery, and the law letting them get away with it, helping them get away with it, and blaming and attacking the victim. Watch. Okay, to get right into it, little more than a year ago, you woke up to find two armed strangers in your house, right?
Yes.
And one of them was in your young daughter's room sitting on her bed, correct?
Yes.
And they refused to leave when you told them to and your ex told them to, correct? Yeah. And they now allege that when they refused to leave, these armed strangers, you've never seen them before, right?
No.
And when they refused to leave, they alleged that you threatened to hit them. And if you ask me, they would have been justified to do a whole lot more than that. Based on that, they then forcibly kidnapped you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And they basically brutally assaulted you. And we'll show some of the evidence of that assault. And kidnapped you for allegedly saying that you were going to do so, you were going to hit them for being armed, violent invaders in your house who wouldn't leave your daughter's room or your house, even though nobody had given them permission to come in. And you had told them to leave, and your ex had told them to leave, and they refused to leave. There is another video for people who want the more of the details of the story, but this video is going to focus on something else, but I wanted to quick give the backstory. So they then kidnapped you and took you away against your will. One of them, when they had you in the car, threatened that he would make sure you never saw your child again, right?
Yes.
At this point, anybody who's not familiar with the case would probably be like, this is completely horrible and unthinkable, and how could that possibly happen? Now I'm going to throw in a detail that's going to make a lot of people go, oh, well, in that case, maybe it was okay. And the reason I do this in this order is to demonstrate how ridiculously biased people are when the violent criminals wear badges. Because the armed invaders in your house wore badges. They worked for the, is it Lindsay or Kawartha Lakes?
Kawartha Lakes Police Department. The
police department up here. And their stated excuse was, well, somebody heard screaming. So their actual, still to this day, their excuse for being in there was to protect you, right? That's why they say it was okay.
Yeah.
Never mind that you were asleep when they went in. So apparently not in a whole lot of danger. And when you told them to leave, and your ex told them to leave, they did, and they had no warrant, right?
No, they had no reason to be in my home at all.
Right, and their excuse for the exigent circumstances, that's the phrase they use in the U.S., is probably what they use up here. Like, well, we heard something, so it's okay that we barged in without a warrant. Makes no sense in that you were asleep and obviously not in any danger, and you wake up to find armed strangers in your house. So that's sort of the backstory. Again, I'll put a link so people can get more of the horrible details of that. But this video, I really wanted to focus on the ridiculousness, just the downright evil of the way the justice system works. And we're up here in Canada now. It's pretty much the same up here as it is down in the U.S. Because it doesn't end there. This was more than a year ago that they did an armed invasion of your house and just brutalized you, kidnapped you. But since then, they've been threatening to try to cage you for, first of all, having supposedly uttered a threat. Now, again, if somebody is an armed invader in my house without any legal justification, anyway, legal justification doesn't mean it moral anyway, they didn't even have that. They instigated the violent conflict based on, well, she said she might hit us. if we didn't leave, right? I mean, there wouldn't have been a confrontation at all. And after that, while they're brutalizing you, eventually you do something to try to resist so they don't literally break your arm, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's covered in the other video. But I wanted to sort of focus on the aftermath. So as a lot of people who are familiar with police abuse know, the two favorite excuses of power-happy thugs with badges for harassing and kidnapping people is resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. And they're trying to get you with assaulting an officer, right?
Yeah.
Which means if we're beating you up and you do anything to resist, that's a crime. And that's why I wanted to describe it as, here's a physical confrontation. Like, nobody disputes there was a physical confrontation. I mean, you have all the pictures of the bruises and all the stuff that they inflicted on you. Makes it pretty obvious there was a physical confrontation. But the insanity that government and authority introduces to the equation, in any other context, people would say that's ridiculous. For example, they show up, they invade your home without moral or legal justification. There's then a violent confrontation. Immediately afterwards, they say, well, because there was a violent confrontation, we're going to kidnap you. Like, they were one side of the violent confrontation. In fact, in every way, they were the instigators.
Yeah.
But even if that wasn't true, even if somebody came upon a fight and was like, what's going on? Well, the first thing that happens is one of the people fighting gets to kidnap the other one. And then they get to take the person they kidnapped to one of their buddies to decide who is in the right and who is in the wrong, and which they will call a trial. And of course, the police and the prosecutors and the judges all work for the state. So they're the same gang. It's the same club of thugs. And people who haven't been through it don't really understand, and they haven't seen it. So I wanted to ask you some things about I hardly even know where to start. I know a lot of people have been through it. I had my own version of it. But just the feeling of having spent the last year where these armed invaders of your home have been basically holding over your head the possibility of trying to put you in a cage for how long? What was like the worst sentence they could do for?
If you actually look online, assaulting a peace officer, I think, isn't it like I think it was a maximum of like 10 years you can get up to.
I think so.
Yeah. I looked it up, assaulting a peace officer in Canada. It's an indictable offense even if you don't have a criminal record.
Right. And they will call it assaulting even if what it is they are literally beating the hell out of you and eventually you do something to resist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is the act of a complete coward. They aren't just thugs, they're complete cowards. And people who haven't been through it, it's not easy to imagine, okay, they kidnap you, have a violent confrontation. Oh, I did want to, have you quick mention if somebody's in a serious car accident, it isn't just, ow, that hurt, a couple days I'm better. Like, there are long-lasting health things. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we even covered them in the other video. Do you want to mention some of the things that have happened from that just brutal assault? There's no other way.
It took me almost a full 6 months to recover all of the feeling back up through my thumb. I have permanent damage to my wrist. The cold really affects it. I drop things all the time. And then my health has kind of plummeted since because I've been so stressed out by them constantly, like having this looming cloud over me. It's caused my body to actually attack itself, and I've become extremely anemic, and I can't keep weight on. And I'm just extremely stressed out because of the situation, and it's starting to actually cause physical damage to my body. Mm-hmm. And I have all of that documented with my doctors as well. I've talked to them about it. And of course, the doctors keep trying to push this mental illness agenda onto me by trying to get me to take medication for being stressed out, or maybe I'm depressed and I need some sort of prescription to help me cope with the PTSD I've developed after this situation. And I've said no altogether to that because I don't believe in that at all. I think I can fix myself naturally and not have to take medication.
As if there's something irrational about being stressed out when a huge gang of armed thugs is still holding the threat of we're going to come kidnap you and put you in a cage. Because that's what a trial is. That's what an accusation is. And it makes me wonder how many people aren't as strong-willed as I am in that sense. How many people do buckle and go, maybe I do need medication, and then they end up messing their mind up even more because of all these additional drugs that they've put into their system. Right. In addition to the actual physical assault, because people who know me know I was raided by the IRS for saying things they didn't like in 2003. Is there any sort of residual? Basically, what does it feel like to have woken up with armed invaders in your house? I mean, I know for me, ever since then, you don't really feel all the way secure. No, I still have trouble being at home alone at night, like at nighttime, like. My parents went away in September just for like a little bit during the night, and I was here all by myself, and I was totally like terrified. I heard noises outside, and I was just on edge the whole time because you don't know if they're out there. I mean, they can come in at any time and come check up on me because of my conditions, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a fear that you have like every day. Are they going to come kick my door in for some unknown reason? And to live with that is, it's difficult, but you kind of just move on. You have to live your life and not live in fear and be brave. And the fact that they, they'll, if anybody else does that, like if somebody says, well, some mugger broke in and beat me up, or some rapist attacked somebody, everybody sympathizes, and like that's got to be horribly traumatic, especially it's in your own home, you never feel safe again. And the fact that your violent attackers had badges doesn't mean, then psychologically it's perfectly fine. Like, it's just as traumatic, it's just as horrible, if anything more so, because like these aren't just random thugs who if you could have hit them with a bat, maybe you can scare them away. They're random thugs backed by thousands of other heavily armed thugs. They are the gang of thugs that is the most difficult to successfully resist. If it was one or two independent thugs, it would be less scary because grab a shotgun. But we all know what government is capable of doing when they want to go destroy somebody. They call in backup like they did in my situation. There was just the two officers, and they couldn't get anyone from the Lindsay Police Department. So then we have the Lindsay Police Department, which takes care of the municipality, and then we have the OPP, which takes care of Ontario jurisdiction or something like that. And they actually had to call in OPP for backup to come and deal with me in the situation going on. Yeah, so it's obvious and evident that they have a huge gang behind them. So it isn't, it's less like you were attacked by a mugger, and it's more like you were attacked by a thug in the mafia. Yeah. That if you do anything to resist or any of that, really bad things are going to happen to you. There's a ton of stuff to cover, but we could probably talk about it for hours. But to me, one of the most insidious, evil things about this, which I only relatively recently learned most of the world has outlawed because they realize this is forced confession, is the concept of a plea bargain. And first of all, I want to totally commend you for not doing what 90-some% of people do, which is the government comes to them and say, well, there's two ways this can happen. You bow down, you kiss the ring, you confess that you were the bad guy. Never mind we came into your house and beat you up without a warrant or any justification. You say you were the bad guy, and then we'll just hurt you a little bit. But if you don't confess and you make us take you to trial, you make us have to actually try to prove something and give you your day in court, which does not happen to the vast majority of people accused of crimes in Canada or the U.S. If you make us have to prove something and we win, then we're going to be really nasty. We'll put you in for years and stuff. And so first I just want to, thank you for not giving them not confessing false guilt.
Mm-hmm. And that was really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard to do. Sorry, but...
No, understandable.
It's like, it almost breaks you.
Yeah.
And it's like, no way. I'm stronger than this, and they will threaten you with everything they can possible. And it's like, you know what? With every single deal that they've offered me or bargain that they're trying to do with me, it's resulted in me ending up with a criminal record at the end of the day. So my best shot is to play the cards I have. Mm-hmm. Because if I go to trial and I lose, I end up with a criminal record anyway.
Right.
Yep.
So this is why I tell people, fight everything. Take everything you can to trial and just clog the system up, because there's no way they could deal with all of it. There's no way. And I want people to know that you can do this. If I can do this, everybody else can do this. And all you have to do is say no.
Yeah. And they will constantly focus. It's where they put most of their effort. They will often do it by way of your own defense attorney, try to nudge the defense. Oh, this sounds like a good deal. Just, beg forgiveness, bow and kiss the ring, say you were naughty.
Yeah.
And then they'll be relatively nice. You'll have a record and they'll fine you or say something nasty or put you on probation or something. Mm-hmm. And most people cave in, but that's where the state puts most of their focus, so that every time you go to a court hearing, they're like, well, here, if you just confess now, here's what we'll do to you, instead of here's what we'll do to you if you don't. Mm-hmm. And that's what, to me, it makes the judges cowards, it makes the prosecutor cowards, it makes the thugs who did this are obviously cowards. But there isn't another word for it. It's terrorism.
Yeah.
To subject somebody to the threat of violence over and over and over again unless they confess guilt, whether or not they did it. And there are defense attorneys who will tell their clients, I know you didn't actually do the thing they're accusing you of, or I know they got evidence illegally, or all the things cops do wrong, but there's the chance you'll lose at trial and they'll be really mean, so just let them get away with breaking the law or making stuff up or planning evidence or interrogating you without reading you your rights or searching you without probable cause, without a warrant.
A lot of people don't understand that there's the option. I think you've said this since this ordeal publicly, on social media a lot, but a lot of people don't understand that there's hope in just delaying the process constantly and putting it off. Mm-hmm. Because if you can keep on putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, so that you're just delaying and delaying and delaying and delaying and delaying and nothing is happening, well, one, you're continuing to be, free in the sense that you're not being thrown into prison, yet you're still maintaining that freedom level, and then you're slowing everything up, backing everything up, making them wait, costing them more money. And that's why, you were saying, and this is true, and a lot of people don't know this, that really, they do not have the resources to wait everybody out and to deal with everybody. So the understanding just how to delay and just keep being a thorn in their side and delay and delay and delay is a great tactic for actually winning back your freedom and keeping it and, and getting them to throw it out and say, we can't deal with this anymore. It's a thorn in our side and it's costly. It's a money suck and all of that, because they're parasites. They're economic parasites.
Yeah,
so really. As soon as it stops being economically intelligent for them to do what they're doing, then they usually make an adjustment.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's so true.
And it's, it's why they want to bully people into confessing and why they would be doomed if people didn't. And it's obvious if you look at the numbers, even just something like if everyone who got a traffic ticket said, well, you're going to take me to trial. I may not even have an excuse, but I'm going to make you take up the time, make you bring in the cop to have to testify. I'm going to take up all your time they couldn't prosecute half the traffic cases if people just said, I'm going to at least make, like, remember this whole thing about innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah.
I'm going to make you prove me guilty. I mean, even if I actually did it, even if I was speeding or didn't have the right sticker on my car.
I was going 10 kilometers over the speed limit.
Right. I'm such an evil person, and I'm still going to make you prove it. They just run people through the extortion racket, and most go, I'm so sorry, here's my money, and I plead guilty and give you my money. And, of course, something like this is way more serious, especially because you were in every way the victim of their violent assault.
Yeah.
And so for that to be followed up by this prolonged terrorism and harassing you, and there's so many little details that don't occur to people who haven't been through it. One is you get, if people go to them, and I've given out their number, and we send emails and stuff, and their excuse when we say, basically, why did you invade somebody's home and, beat the hell out of this woman and do all sorts of fascist stuff? No, well, it's an ongoing case. We're not at liberty to talk about it. So
Of course.
Right. So the violent instigators have this excuse. Meanwhile, defense attorneys, and I understand why they do this, but defense attorneys will say, careful what you say, maybe you don't want to talk about it in public. So you're the victim, and you have the person who's on your side, and it can partly be because they basically work for the court, or it can partly be because they actually mean well. It's like, we don't want them to have anything to use against you. But it shows the insanity of it, of you have a violent conflict, and then one side is going to decide who is in the right. Well, gee, that sounds really unbiased. Oh, and the entire case is based on what the attackers say happened.
Yeah.
Because that's their case.
Yep.
And the only other evidence there was they stole, right? Which was the phone, which may have recorded some of what went on. But of course, the first thing the cops do when there's something like that, we get all the evidence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we lose or erase the evidence that doesn't help us.
And then what they do is they slap whoever is co-charged together. You're instantly all slapped with like restraining orders, so you can't talk, you can't like be around this person within 100 meters of place of worship or profession. Like, yeah, I wasn't even allowed to talk to people that were my ex's my family members.
Yeah.
I wasn't even allowed to talk to.
Meanwhile, the first thing they do is they all go get together and figure out the story they're going to tell so their stories match.
Yeah.
I mean, and then they write one report. And I saw the reports. They didn't even do a good job of that. Their own reports didn't match each other.
They're so inconsistent with them in the disclosure, and like we're still getting new pieces of disclosure.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Right, so they didn't even keep the story straight. And when you think about it in terms of when you remove the whole notion of, government and the badge and the uniform, and you just look at these human beings and what they're doing and how they justify it, and it's the epitome of insanity, and yet we're in this world where there are a bunch of people that will commend these, peace officers for doing that.
Yeah.
They will commend them.
They're heroes.
Yeah.
Right. And,
Heroes.
and people are so well trained to bow to authority that when cases go to trial and the case is, well, there's the respectable law officer saying what happened in this violent conflict that he was part of. He was the invader and the instigator, which they don't even deny that. They're not pretending you went to them, attacked them. They admit they went into your house. They admit they didn't have a warrant. Both of you told them to leave, and they didn't. So they can't even pretend you were in any way the instigator. You were asleep in your own freaking house, and an hour later you were beat up and in the back of a cop car. For them to pretend that was your fault, no matter what you said or did, is utterly insane. Like, they were obviously in every way the instigators. But so many people at a trial, well, there's the respectable officer of the law in a uniform saying what happened, and they'll assume that he's more likely to tell the truth. They lie so often that they have a term for it, which is test-a-lying. That's what the cops call it between each other. And they do it constantly. And that's another part of the game, is when they get caught doing that, nothing happens to them. No. If you get caught, it's called perjury and they prosecute you.
Up to 10 years in prison.
Right.
Like, that's a major indictable offense. And that's why one of my other court cases that I took to trial got thrown out, is because the person that accused me security guard accused me of assault when she assaulted me all on video camera. And I took that to trial, and I didn't plead guilty, even though they tried to get me to plead guilty right away to it. And I said, no, there's a videotape showing that she totally did assault me. And when I took that to trial, the Crown had to throw it out because they cannot sit there and defend perjury. And with the video, it clearly showed the security guard
totally lied. Yeah.
barreling me and like just plowing me over, and they threw it out. Yeah. Because the security guard lied, and they can't have that in court. You can't lie on stand, so they threw it out.
And the number of cases, and I think more people are starting to wise up to this, the number of cases where cops have gotten caught lying, especially with all the phones and cameras everywhere, and not just, we didn't quite remember it, like they were lying through their teeth and they absolutely knew it. Yeah. They don't get fired. They don't get prosecuted. It's just the worst, and this is what's, one of the things that's just so ridiculously evil. The worst thing that happens to them is, darn, we didn't get to cage that person because we got caught lying through our teeth or planting evidence or whatever else. But nobody goes after them. So you have this, you have a violent confrontation where when they lie, and in your case, they absolutely lie. In fact, it's even if somebody doesn't know the case or doesn't believe you at all, it's impossible they didn't lie because their own stories don't match each other.
Right.
Like the two cops, even though they're allowed to talk to each other, they're allowed to go back to the office, they're supposed to go back to the office and figure out their stories and make it match. They still failed to make it match. Meanwhile, they split up you and your ex, and like nobody's allowed to talk to anybody to make sure you guys, can't have a consistent story, but you did have a consistent story because you didn't have to make anything up.
No.
It's easy to have a consistent story when you're all saying what actually happened instead of making stuff up.
And one thing I wanted to add before I forget is in my last trial with the case with the security guard, the first thing police officers say to you is they say you have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Do not say anything to the police whatsoever, even if it's the truth. Like, your truth will be used against you in the court of law, and they tell you that. You do not speak to the cop. You do not leave a statement whatsoever under any circumstances, because then everything that goes to trial, they don't know anything. They have no ammo. You gave them no ammo, and that's why my case is doing so well, is because of the things that I've personally went out of my way to research for my protection of my own freedom and individual rights.
Right.
And I like to express that to other people because I am going through this right now. I know what the ins and outs are right now with the court system, and that is my saving grace right now, is that I did not give a statement. And I want more people to know that. And also, when they get you starting the process of going to trial, they will come at you in like 3-month intervals. Like, it's like they know when to like whip you so much and get you so down, and they come for you on purpose when you're so low. And that's what ended up happening with Jesse, is they got Jesse when he was in this messed up state because he wasn't as mentally strong as I was. They got to him, and he ended up going in and voluntarily giving a bad statement against me. And then what happens is they then slap you with conditions because you corroborated with them, so they'll let you off and give you a little slap on the wrists, and you go, oh, thank you, thank you. Like, there's some hero. It's like, no, that person just totally committed a wrong against you, and you're gonna say thank you because you went and like corroborated with them, because you were in fear, because they kept coming at you at your lowest points to get you to go give a statement. Yeah,
and it's another version of forced confession. It's just confessing against somebody else. They do that with informants constantly. They will have, they'll have basically career police informants that they have a bunch of dirt on, and they'll just go to them, here's what you're going to testify about, or we're going to get you on what we have against you.
And then if you say anything different, slightly anything different from your statement, boom, you can then go to jail for perjury.
Right.
In a trial case. So if Jesse says anything different as to what he said in the statement, he can then go to jail for perjury.
Right. So
then that's how they just take you and put you in their pocket.
Yeah. And so they can intimidate someone against, squealing at somebody else, which they do all the time. I mean, they even have it in their awesome cop shows that try to pretend they're good people fighting for justice, which is a total joke and a lie. But they even admit, well, we have this stuff on you, but if you inform on this other guy, and most people, it never occurs to them, wait, what if they do that and have someone lie? Mm-hmm. Which they do all the time. And it's another thing they get caught doing all the time is they have some sleazy, slimy, actual criminal informant. And they say, well, we don't like that guy, so you're going to make up this story that you're going to then feed to us, the police. We'll tell you exactly what you're going to say to us, and we're going to hurt you if you don't. Mm-hmm. And we'll use that false confession against somebody else or false testimony against somebody else to go get them. And again, that's how the game works. And only people who've been through it realize and seen the way they function realize how utterly evil it is.
So evil. It's like the epitome of evil.
Yeah.
The system is diametrically opposed to humanity's freedom and free will. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
And it's always divide and conquer, and it's always about their power and their control. Mm-hmm. And holding that over people and terrorizing people and dragging out, and then trying to give them incentive, don't talk about it, and don't, because we might use it against you. So I
need to talk about this stuff.
I know. You need to for you, and you need to for the world, and so does everybody else, because the more thugs can function in the dark and have nobody know what these people are like and what they're doing, the more they get away with it.
Yeah.
And so I also commend you for daring to talk about it in public, for your sake, but also for the sake of everybody else.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. And it's not like it's the first time that the Lindsay Police Department has ever had people saying, yeah, you guys are power happy, lying crooks. And that's hardly, unique to this police department. Police all over the world are getting caught more and more, being violent criminal, but more people have to speak out and say about it, because there are still a number of people who think, well, if the police arrested you, you had to have done something bad. Yeah. And I know a bunch of people who have turned involuntarists because of some little fairly trivial thing where they realized what the state is, because I all the way didn't do anything, and I ended up getting harassed and robbed and caged and blah, blah, blah. And people are learning the hard way. They're just a street gang. You got attacked by members of a street gang. That's all they are. They're a really big, well-armed street gang. Right. They're vindictive. They're cowards because they will terrorize their victims after the fact. The average mugger is nice enough that if he beats you up and steals your money, at least he leaves you the hell alone after that. They don't even do this.
Well, the mugger doesn't think that he has any, he has no delusions of doing the right thing for you and for humanity and for being some awesome authoritarian representative of the people. The mugger or the thug or the burglar, that's somebody who absolutely knows I have a selfish need, I need to meet it right now. And when you have somebody who's operating on that level with you, then you're dealing with something totally different, because you have a need that's not being met. You'll at least get off my back when that need is met or whatever. Even if somebody comes to my home and I'm happen to be defenseless, but he's looking for food or he's looking for stuff, well, at least I know he's gone if he gets what he needs and he just goes.
And he doesn't have to demonize his victim after the fact. You were the bad guy after
stick around to demonize the victim or to do any of those things. And then here we have this group of people who think we can do whatever we want to people, including be nothing but robbers and burglars and kidnappers and, just completely horrible people. But that's legitimate because this morning I woke up and put on this uniform and this badge, and a bunch of other humans said I get to do this. So this is, this is my job. So it's in a way, I would rather deal with the average thief on the street any day and have a problem with the average person, then deal with the thing behind me on the road with those lights who thinks he has a duty and a right to use the threat of deadly force to interfere with my day and my life anytime he wants. And he can call a gang on a whim to back him up. And then millions of people who might find out about that may all back him up in his, purely nothing but a violation of my free time, my life, my what I'm trying to do.
And
so people don't think about the fact that it's a whole two different worlds. They have this illusion that these guys are here to protect, and it's like these are the guys that will beat the crap out of me for my own good.
Right.
No burglar thinks that way.
While you're asleep, they'll protect you by breaking into your house.
It's like that shirt I wear, government serving and protecting you, and beating them up. Like,
and they were claiming to answer like a phone call about you being in distress or
because they said they heard yells while you're asleep.
There was a claim to have answered the phone call from the neighbor or somebody who called in and said that they heard screaming or yelling or something.
There was some yelling going on.
So supposedly they're coming in to see if everything's okay.
The yelling, like, how do you know that wasn't my TV turned up extra loud? Like, my neighbor even said, I can't see through walls, so I don't know. Right. So this is very vague, which gives them absolutely no grounds to enter your home. Yeah. And if you were to talk to one of these peace officers, they'll sit there and say, yeah, we can totally enter your home with probable cause. They will say this, and I'm like, absolutely you cannot. Yeah. I'm like, there are certain things that you have to do first before you can get in here.
And that's another thing where the more people just passively let them get away with whatever they want to do, the more they think they're allowed to.
Yeah, if more people in Canada decided to, protect themselves with amazing tools and, actually stood their ground when these thugs invade your home while they're armed, and you displayed your capability of self-defense against them, they'd think twice about kicking in random people's doors and waltzing in like they own the place, because that person behind there could have a shotgun pointed at your head when you kick that door in.
Right, and there are places even in the U.S. where it happens
and
less than other places.
Totally, absolutely justified. Like, even if I've heard of scenarios where the police did kick in someone's door and the person shot them and they didn't get in trouble because of the circumstances surrounding that case or whatever, because the police officer was coming in there to commit harm. But what if that guy didn't stand up and defend himself? What could that cop have done? What
would have happened?
What would have happened? And I would rather deal with a society of capable, free-thinking people getting tools and means of self-defense and assembling in ways to actually prevent these gang members from walking all over us. I mean, do you want a boot stamping on your face for the rest of your life, or are you going to stand up and actually say no?
And those are the choices. I mean, there's that great, I think it's Frederick Douglass quote about, find out the exact amount of injustice that people will tolerate, and you found out exactly how much will be imposed upon them until they resist with words or blows or both. Because why wouldn't authoritarian grow to the point that people say, okay, now we're going to resist? Like, if you're a bully and you treat people that way and they all grovel and do what you say, why is a bully ever going to back off?
Yeah.
And so
they're going to keep encroaching. And I think too, because of mass communication, it's possible that people are becoming aware of the nature of, police and government and what they do, because we have the ability to instant video capture everything and communicate now. And there was never this world where any random person just knew what somebody they couldn't physically see with their own eyes, many miles away or on the other side of the world, what they were doing at that moment in time and what all these other people were up to in their day. We have this huge mass communication center, the World Wide Web, and everybody can now instantly make someone aware if they want to, way over here, what they're doing right here.
Well, and so us doing this video.
We can do this, and we didn't have that before. And so I often wonder if it's not even that, a lot of people think that, police brutality has increased, and maybe that's true. Maybe it fluctuates up and down. Maybe within a recent time span, it's maybe increased a little bit. But I think that it's more like they aren't able to get away with this stuff being in the dark anymore.
Yeah, it's like widely known now. It's revealed.
Right, because mass communication is a transparency lens. on everything. People are capturing it. So it feels like it's happening all over the place and it's more, but maybe we just know about it.
Yeah.
We know about it. So now we're going, oh my God.
What are we going to do about it?
Right, because I bet if you go far enough back, you can find plenty of, go through all, old library accounts where, like, old newspaper documents and stuff, clippings, and you can find probably all kinds of records that keep on going back of the constant, stories of things that were done to people by, people in government who were badges and law enforcement, and it would all be there. And just because one person was like, well, I have memories of them being really nice and of things going well, and I never had a problem with them. But oftentimes those people also weren't doing something to piss off authority. They weren't doing anything that set them off. They just happened to not rub them the wrong way. So that as far as they knew, well, they were nice. Well, they were polite, and that's what I remember. And
there's another quote about that jumps to mind. Is John Hayes or something, which is, tyranny is seldom seen, but by him who resists it. Because all the people just say, yes, sir, I'll bow, I'll do whatever, I'll let you, search me at random, I'll let you barge into my house, I'll let you treat me like a subject. I don't have any trouble with the police. That's because you behave like a slave.
Yeah.
And only the people who say, that's not okay and I'm not going to let that happen, first of all, they're the ones who get in trouble. They see the tyranny because then out comes the club that says, well, here's what happens if you don't bow to us. They're also the only people in the world who serve as a check against tyranny. Like the people who, well, I'm a good little slave so they don't bother me, that's not something to be proud of.
I just don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to make waves.
Right. You want it to slowly sink as long as it doesn't rock, because that's what happens when nobody rocks.
Have fun drowning.
It's mind-blowing to me because it's just, I always just make the comparison of, like, in 1945 in Germany with the Nazis, if more people disregarded bad laws, maybe a lot more Jews wouldn't have been hauled off to concentration camps. You'll see cases where there's a German family that hid some Jews, and what the general public would say is, don't break the law. Yeah. Which is hiding human beings and trying to save them from being slaughtered by a crazy fascist psycho megalomaniac, as you would say.
One of the most powerful memes I ever saw was just a picture. It was so powerful. It was just this little drawing picture image, and it was like a woman, like I think she was giving a kiss goodbye to the man that looks clearly like her husband, and it looks like maybe she's in a kitchen setting or she's in the house, and then there's a little kid standing behind her that's clearly their child, and like she's giving him a kiss before he goes off, like, have a nice day at work. And he's
yes, I know what you mean. You're talking about
he's a Nazi officer.
SS officer.
Yeah, he's an SS officer. And a lot of people have this weird cartoon view of history, and I think they got it from, just terrible movies and the propaganda of the public indoctrination system. But they have this idea that somehow they were all diabolically evil and, like, knew it and enjoyed being evil Nazis and, were nasty people. And if you actually go back into history and you look at interviews with people who were Nazis and the books written about it, it's insane. They're absolutely modern day American cops. They
just doing my job, just following
they were doing
orders.
Their job. They believed we get to live in this place where we have all these freedoms. We're working towards this awesome, better world. Everything is amazing. That was their outlook. They did not think that they were on the wrong side of
I'm making the world a better place
anything.
by hauling these innocent people off to these.
And they were just following orders. The ones that had problems with it, they felt trapped. They were like, well, I have to do my job.
Right. Instead of the cartoon Nazi movies, I highly recommend people see the movie The Final Days of Sophie Scholl, which is based on the actual, at least Nazis kept good records. It's based on the transcripts of the hearings and the meetings she had and then her trials. And that movie so creeped me out because it showed the Nazi bureaucracy for what it was. I was like, this is exactly what the U.S. bureaucracy is.
Same thing.
All these lower people, I'm just doing my job, and if you'll just cooperate and just say you were wrong and blah, 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 and like, why won't you make this easy on yourself?
Yeah.
Like the people hurting you, why don't you just confess and make this easy on yourself?
Why don't you just bow down and kiss the ring, Cheryl?
Right. Exactly. So there's these string of thugs and cowards, a big collection of both. Some's one, some is the other, some is both. And people don't get that the only thing that stops that is people, resisting at some point, whether it's forcible or passive, or just do something other than just bow and act like a slave.
All you have to do is say no.
Right.
Like that's really how
Right.
simple it is. You can just say no.
Yeah.
I don't
Try
want
to
to be a
try
part
to
of
say
this.
no. A lot of people, it doesn't occur to them to just, as soon as the state, it's like they bark and people jump.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that a lot of times you can sort of just put them to the test by trying to continue to ignore them and go on and say, I'm going to pretend you're not there. I'm going to ignore you. No, I'm going to do what I want to do and keep going on doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in lots of situations, traffic court is a great example. You can absolutely ignore them away, and there's not a lot they can really do because they don't have the resources to go after everybody individually for stupid stuff. Everything is sort of an intimidation test. How many people can we get to give up their money just through the fact that we're going to mail them a little piece of paper
Through a
and
threat.
and they'll think the piece of paper means they need to do something. Do you know how many people I know who stress out about, well, I got a jury summons, what do I do? I don't want to do jury duty, or I don't want to do that, or I can't, and I'm worried about jury summons. And I'm thinking, they have to even prove you got the jury summons. I had a family member who threw all jury summons away that he ever got for years. Nothing ever happened. It just would get one in the mail and go, nope, and throw it out.
Receive it.
Because enough people go along without doing that.
And they can't prove, they have no way to know that you got the thing in the mail. They can't
They have
actually
to say
prove
it, send it registered.
Yeah,
or something like
I
that.
would get traffic, the automatic cameras they started putting up all over the valley where I live in the West. A lot of people were so angry at that because it was a huge surveillance move. And they started sending out these automatic tickets, like a big flash would go off if you accidentally ran in the red light or something, like you pulled across too soon.
Oh my gosh, so they're sitting there ticketing people through cameras?
Yeah, then they mail you
lazy to
the
use
camera. Then it would send you a ticket in the mail. And
Really, I didn't get that.
And people found out that legally they still had to have a process server physically serve you, or it didn't count.
Because how much money did they get just on that threat?
Yeah, just on the threat, they got a lot. I probably in 6 or 7 months' time, when they set the cameras up on the freeway for if you went a little bit too much over the speed limit, and they started flashing people on the freeway, people hugely boycotted it, and all en masse were ignoring the tickets. And I just completely ignored, I think, 6 different camera set-offs in 6 months. I ignored them entirely. And they all fell off. And I just made sure I didn't answer the door for any doorbell rings I didn't recognize because I didn't want the processor to come and, throw it in my face and be like, okay, they served. Because they could successfully serve you, then the state could say, okay, it was a legit ticket. If it didn't count, if they didn't serve you in person. So then they had a bunch of process servers that were scamming, that were lying and saying they were serving people,
wow.
and they
Yeah,
weren't.
sorry,
And people made such a stink and started suing so bad all over Arizona, suing the process servers for unlawfully trying to screw people.
That's bad.
That in the end, a bunch of the surveillance cams stayed up on the surface streets, but all the freeway cameras that people were mad about, pissed about, they were putting. There were Santa Clauses that were coming out on Christmas and covering the freeway cameras on the freeway all over
dressed as Santa
Arizona.
Claus.
Yeah, as dressed as Santa Claus, covering all the cameras up and stuff. And eventually all the cameras came down off the freeway over Arizona.
Deep down, human beings do not like authority and government. Deep
Right.
down, everybody is an anarchist, and they just don't know it yet.
Right. They've just
Or
been
they've had that
trained
beat
to
down.
bow
It's like they
down.
have
Yeah.
Stockholm.
Yeah.
They've been so beat and they don't even believe freedom is possible. I think on
Yeah,
some
true
level
that.
they think they can't be, so they've convinced themselves, well, everyone around me seems to think we have to have this huge class of people doing this to us, so there has to be a reason, or why would everyone else believe in it? So I have to have some justification. And, you know, that's when they throw the questions at you, know, but who will build the roads and all that stuff. And it's just their brain saying, there has to be a reason. I was told some reason. There has to be some reason that I'm going through all this, that I have to deal with this crap. And because it's so big, and the possibility of being free is so far and so impossible, that, and it's almost painful. It's like you can't even look at how big it is, because when you realize,
can't fathom it.
Yeah, when you realize how free you're not, and how much you're nowhere near as free as you should be, it's painful to acknowledge it. You don't want to. You don't want to face the fact that, holy shit, I have to ask permission for every freaking thing I want to do.
Yeah, and one of the things too is, in a weird way, and only those who have went through this scenario, like situation that I've went through, will get this. I am more free now than ever. And people will be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, they're threatening to lock you in a cage. What do you mean you're more free now than ever? It's in my mind. I have had them come to me with the ring. I had that ultimatum in front of my face, and I said no.
Yeah.
You know, that's extremely powerful.
That's internal freedom.
Right.
Because that's
exactly what anarchy is. People don't understand how, like, beautiful and, like, self-empowering it is.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And just going through this has just made me so much more stronger. And, you know, just people really just need to stand up and say no.
Yeah. Like, they can
government and
they can
authority.
Control your body and beat you up, but the moment your mind is free of this notion of better bow and do what they say and obligation to, you know, listen to authority, then you're suddenly an inconvenient subject because, darn it, she doesn't think that it's okay that we went in and beat the hell out of her, and now we're threatening to cage her. And so, you know, she's
and you're doing this, and
stuff.
you're a mom too. I mean, like, that's huge, because the obligation that I feel and that you feel as mothers, you know, to be around. But at the same time, we go, what good is it for if I'm laying down and I'm not doing anything to make a world that's to help lead towards a world, you know, with my actions, that's freer for my kid. Like, if it's no good. People say, well, you're taking that risk, and it's like, it's a greater risk in the long run to other children. You know, it's more selfish to be so worried about my own life and you know, just me and mine, than it is to actually recognize there's many decades that are going to go past this, and there's ripple effects of my actions.
Absolutely.
And what I do now matters.
I think it would be good to pretty much wrap up now with the Thomas Paine quote that if there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace.
Yes.
And that matters more than lay low right now, because we don't want to be in trouble. So I want to thank you so much for daring to not kiss the ring, and your case is one that just highlights so many things that make it just utterly insane, where they were in every way the instigator, in every way the bully, in every way the criminal, and they're still trying to hold it over you, and they're still trying to terrorize you. And the fact that most people would buckle and say, okay, I'll kiss the ring, just don't hurt me too bad. It's why they can still do that. And it's the irony of people going along with it. All the people who go along and remain quiet don't realize they're the ones enabling this to be the reality they live in. And the people like you who say, you know, they have the ability to kill me or cage me or whatever, but they don't have the ability to make me act like a slave. And that's what the world needs a whole lot more of. So thank you so much for what you've done. And I hope you can publicize this and show the world who the thugs and criminals are, and maybe for once put a little pressure on them to back off. So these are the two badge-wearing thugs who invaded Cheryl's home while she was sleeping, assaulted her, and kidnapped her. This is Officer Janet Drew, who illegally entered Cheryl's home and illegally entered her young daughter's room and was sitting on the child's bed and touching her while the child was crying. And when Cheryl came in and found her there and told her to leave, her response was to violently assault Cheryl. And this is Officer Donaldson, who Officer Drew called in when Cheryl tried to defend herself. Donaldson then brutally assaulted Cheryl, strangled her, kidnapped her, threatened her while she was in custody, and swore he would make sure that Cheryl never saw her young daughter again. He then lied under oath about what happened and stole and covered up evidence showing what actually happened. For more details of the story, watch this video. As of right now, while I'm recording this, these thugs and the collaborating prosecutors are trying to hurt Cheryl more. And they know damn well the system is going to do nothing about the fact that they are lying criminals, thieves, and thugs. Oh, and this is their chief of police, John Haggerty, who, despite hundreds of people petitioning for some justice in this case, turned a blind eye and sided with his fellow badge-wearing thugs. Let me be blunt here. If you don't give these thugs and all the other sadistic thugs who wear badges something to lose personally when they do this sort of thing, this is going to get worse. If you quietly accept and tolerate this sort of thing, you can expect more of it. So, here is the contact information for the Kawartha Lakes Police Department. And here is a supposedly independent agency that handles complaints about police abuse in that area. And yes, third-party complaints are accepted. As Frederick Douglass said, quote, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them, and these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows or with both." So if you want this sort of fascist crap to end, at least start by resisting with words.